Mike Shoesmith is waiting. Now, of course, Mike Shoesmith has been with me from the beginning for many years now, and he is our Canadian correspondent out of Toronto, Canada, also the executive director of the P.P. Simmons News and Ministry Network. Mike, it's good to have you with us. What do you got for us today? I know you've got something amazing.
Yes, Gallups. It appears that Canada once again making worldwide headlines again here. You know, it's not enough that Canada delivered a stunning defeat to the Americans in the Olympics. I mean, I hate to bring it up again,
but that's okay.
but once again, Canada sort of leaving the U.S. behind, so to speak, when it comes to the economic situations. Canada is now leading the world for the first time, surpassing the United States in the average income of the working class, the middle class. Yeah, the middle class income in Canada has, for the first time, passed the United States and become the world's highest paid middle class in the world.
Yeah, well, good on you. I'm happy for you, really.
Well, and it's fascinating here. We have to go into the deep end of the pool here to understand why this is. Steve Forbes was interviewed about this very topic this week, and he says because Canada has such a low corporate tax rate. You know, we've talked about this before, how corporate taxes are essentially are individual taxes because corporations don't actually pay taxes, right?
Right. No, that's exactly right.
Right. So when you increase corporate taxes, you're increasing the taxes on the common people.
On people. That's right, consumers, because consumers are going to pay the taxes for the corporation. They're just going to jack up the prices of their product or service.
And this is proof of that. You know, we've been vindicated on this, by the way. This is proof of this. And Steve Forbes says this is because Canada has such a low corporate tax rate, and that's part of it. But we have to, in order to understand the bigger picture here, because I live here, I do have a unique understanding of what's going on up here, we have to bring in John McCain here. Because John McCain is getting a lot of mileage out of a soundbite that he generated about Russia. You know, he said that Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country.
Right.
and then he said, and that's a great quote, right? And then he said, and then he corrected himself. And he says Russia is a gas station run by the mafia, masquerading as a country. And I think you know, if we're going to define what a country is, you know. The Paul Revere Society was founded by Michael Savage, and they have a great definition for a country. A country is like, if you can imagine, a three-legged stool, and each leg represents borders, language, and culture. So if one of those legs on a three-legged stool collapses, what happens? The whole stool collapses, right?
Right.
So if your borders disintegrate, think about your own country there for a second while I'm talking.
Please, let's don't.
Well, if your borders disintegrate, your language disintegrates, your culture disintegrates, you have your country disintegrating as a whole.
Right.
All right. So in Russia, it meets the definition of a country in that respect, right? In fact, their borders currently in the throes of expanding their borders. Actually, right. In fact, the Ukraine now is launching a plea out to the world now because they're expecting an attack. It's imminent. They're saying this weekend they're expecting an attack from Russia. But so John McCain, he said, now we got to look at Canada. What do you think Canada's number one export is? It's oil.
I guess so. Yes.
So Canada meets the definition then, because Canada then would be a gas station masquerading as a country then, right?
Yeah.
Because their number one export is oil. Without oil, Canada would devolve into a third world country. By the way, the only reason there's any liberalism in Canada at all is because they have the oil revenue to pay for it.
Right.
That's the only reason.
Yeah, and because America pretty much provides for the defense, so they don't have to spend a lot of money on defense either.
Well, that's right, and here is proof of everything I'm about to tell you is proven by another country, and that country is Norway, by the way, because I lived in Norway for 4 years, and Norway is a socialist country, and Norway, every man, woman, and child in Norway is a millionaire, by the way. If you're born in Norway, you are born a millionaire. Each one of them is worth 1 million kroners, which is their currency. Right. They're not a member of the European Union, so they still use their old currency, the kroner. Every man, woman, think about this, every man, woman, and child in Norway is a millionaire. Well, how is that even possible?
Well, that was my question. How is that? Explain it.
Because Norway, the country, the state, owns the oil barges out there in the ocean, and their number one export is oil. I mean, they live and breathe off of oil over there. And that's how now none of the people there have access to the money, because it's a borderline communism over there. It's a socialist country. The state owns everything. Right? So if Norway did not have the oil, they would be just like Greece, which has no oil. Greece is bankrupt. Greece is a socialist country akin to Norway, except that Greece has no oil. The entire world's economies are floating on top of an abundance of oil or a lack of oil. The oil-rich countries have all the money. The oil-deficient countries have no money and rely on the oil-rich countries. Norway is the prime example of that. Norway has... Think about this. The only way the people in Norway have access to the money is what? If they go on welfare. Right. And they go on the government breast, right? That is why Norway has, get this, Norway has a 24% unemployment rate. Because people just stop, why do I have to work?
Yeah, why work if you don't have to? And that's what's happening in the United States. We're headed that way quickly. Right.
So that is why Canada has surpassed the United States, is because of the oil. That's why. And if you break Canada down, Canada's oil-producing provinces are the richest when it comes to income. And Canada's manufacturing provinces are the poorest because they have no oil. So when you take Ontario, for example, Ontario, they're split into two groups, have-not provinces and have provinces. It used to be Ontario was the richest province because it was the main manufacturing province before before oil went over $50, $60, $70 a barrel.
Right.
Now they need it to stay high. That's why Canada is against peace with Iran, because Iran, as an enemy of Israel, keeps the tensions perpetual over there. That is why Canada voted against this peace deal with Iran, because they don't want the price of crude dropping below $50 a barrel, because then they have to shut down the tar sands in Alberta, and they can't make any more oil.
Right. And how does the Keystone pipeline figure into all of this, and Obama's basic rejection of it or ignoring of it?
Well, that would be a direct pipeline from Canada down into Texas and points in between where they would refine. Canada makes bitter crude. They don't make the sweet crude that's the good kind of crude. Canada makes bitter crude. It takes a certain amount of capacity to refine it. So, Canada, they're going to start shipping it to China. Now Obama's expected to not approve it now, by the way.
Right. Now, where does that originate in Canada, the Keystone? Where does that originate? Where's the head of that?
In northern Alberta, up near Fort McMurray.
Okay.
And they just pipe that straight down they want to send it straight out into Texas, where they have the refining capacity to deal with it.
Right.
Now, they will send it to China if they have to. They have to send it somewhere. Canada is a wealthy nation because of the oil reserves in Canada. And that's why everybody's a millionaire in Norway, and that's why everybody's bankrupt in Greece. Listen, it's all about the oil. I interviewed a guy who was directly beneath Condoleezza Rice when she was under Bush, and he told me, he said, you know why they didn't name it Operation Iraqi Liberty? I said, why? He said, think about what that spells. It spells oil. I mean, that's a little too obvious, so they named it Operation Iraqi Freedom. Because, listen, at the end of the day, it's all about the oil. It's all about the oil.
Right, right. No, you're absolutely right. And I know that people took a lot of heat talking about that back in the day when all of that was going on, and we discussed that quite a bit on the radio back in those days. And but you're right. That's what it's all about.